What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean. Hey, before we get into this video about the LIRA or the Locked In Retirement Account, I just wanted to say really quickly, a quick announcement. Things are getting a little busy in the household here. My wife and I just had our first kid, so videos are gonna be a little bit slow for the next little while until we get into our new pattern, but we're super excited to have a little Nicholas join the family, and so just bear with me as we work through this, and we're gonna be putting out some stuff. It's just gonna be slower instead of having to come out every week, so thanks. All right, so let's talk about LIRAs a bit. It stands for Locked In Retirement Account, and these accounts exist for a very specific purpose. You won't ever need these or run into these unless you work at a company that supplies a pension or some other kind of defined benefit contribution. And what I mean by that is like when you put in a chunk of your salary and they match with another percentage of free money, whether it's invested in stocks or some other kind of plan to take care of your retirement. If you are to leave that company, let's say you switch jobs and you go somewhere else, which was my case. I worked at a company that had a defined benefits contribution plan. The plan was vested, which means I had to spend 2 years at that company in order to claim that money if I left. So I had to open a LIRA to move that money from the company into my bank. And from what I'm reading, this account is specific to Canadians. If you are from the US or watching in the US, you can move the lump sum from your pension over to a traditional IRA or a 401k. So similar to an RRSP, later when you're ready to withdraw money from a LIRA, you open up a different account or you convert it to something called a LIF, which is a life income fund. And that is a fund that you can withdraw money from in a slower manner later in life when you're no longer working, essentially avoiding paying taxes in a higher tax bracket. So now, here are some things that you should know about a LIRA. Number one, the assets that you invest in are just like an RSP. They can be in just a regular savings account, high interest savings account. They can be in stocks, portfolios, or whatever investment vehicle that you can apply to an RSP applies to a LIRA. The second thing you should know is that a US tax treaty exists with this account just like it exists with an RSP. So you can hold stocks in US companies and not pay a withholding tax to the US if this is under your LIRA account. So that's awesome. The second thing is LIRAs, or Locked In RRSPs as they're sometimes called, are regulated by the Income Tax Act, either by federal or provincial legislation. It depends on the company that you were working for that is bringing that money in. Number four is the funds that are deposited into your Locked In RRSP or your LIRA have to come from an institution or a company. You can't actually make regular contributions to this fund like you could for an RRSP or for a TFSA or any of the other accounts that we've talked about on this channel. So that's a big difference. You won't be able to do dollar cost averaging and that kind of stuff. It's not as flexible. The whole idea of this account is that it's basically delaying the money that you would have received from this pension when you were a lot older, 55, 60 or so. So it's just holding it in your bank account. You wouldn't really be able to get at that money until you're at that age. And that brings me to number five, which is that you have to hit a certain age in order to be able to withdraw money from this account. I'll put up a table here that just shows by province what age you would have to be in order to be able to start to withdraw money, converting this into a LIF and withdrawing money and drawing down that account. There are some situations that allow you to get at this money earlier. That would include, well, most of these situations aren't very good, but financial hardship, having a really small dollar amount, or even having a terminal illness. Those situations, depending on the province, will let you get at this money earlier rather than later. So you don't really want to be in that situation. So plan on having this money in the account for a long time. Number six is actually there's a little bit of a time limit on this as well. Once you turn the age of 71, you have to convert this money over to a LIF and start to draw down a minimum amount of money from this account, which is very similar to RSPs. Same thing, you can't hold on to this money forever, so it's worth noting that. Now, this gives you a little bit of flexibility in how long to plan for the money to grow in this account. If you put kind of a long-term retirement plan together, make sure you consider this. By the way, I sometimes use the term called a runway when I talk about investments, and that's just personal finance talk for the amount of time you want to have your money in an account or the amount of time you can grow your investment. So when we're talking about a LIRA, for me, that's probably 20 years from now. So that's a pretty long runway. If you have a short-term investment goal, we'll call that a short runway. That's just so you know what I'm talking about. Feel free to use that at the next cocktail party and impress your friends or or don't if you want to keep your friends. Number 7 is a little bit of a trick, but you can actually gradually unlock your lifetime income fund by taking out the maximum allowed withdrawals and transferring them into your RRSP or an RRIF, which is just like a LIF, effectively unlocking some of the funds so you can choose exactly when you want to withdraw that money later. You can do this without having to pay any taxes, transferring them from one to the other. So if you want to avoid taxes for a little bit longer, there's a trick for you. Last tip is you can appoint a beneficiary or a spouse to sort of receive the funds from this account if something were to happen to you, and they can do that by avoiding having to pay the taxes of selling the investment, transferring the cash over. This can all be kind of done through the back door and avoid the tax man. So that's a good thing to set up just in case something were to happen. Now you'll know from previous videos, I do my investing with Questrade. If you guys are interested in opening a LIRA account or need one open, Questrade does provide that service and lets you invest in portfolios and ETFs and all that kind of jazz if you choose to do so. So that's who I have my account with. If you guys want a promotion, free $50 to invest, or some free management fees with QuestWealth, there's a link in the description. Please click that and it'll help this channel out a little bit as well. Okay, so let me just jump into what I did with my LIRA. Now, considering the long runway that I have on this money and this investment, and also considering the fact I can't dollar cost average with this money either, I decided that I wanted to make it pretty automatic and sort of set it and forget it. And the easiest way I could do that was, you guessed it, put this in vsp.to, which is the S&P 500 index fund. Now, since then it has grown, it has been doing fairly well, and I would assume I would get about a 7% return on this money year over year, which is a lot better than a lot of savings or high interest savings account. And it's pretty reliable, and I thought that it struck a pretty good balance between kind of risk and return for me. So that's just what I chose to do with it. I can expect this money to grow even more and have a pretty good sum by the time I'm done. The other way that you could look at this, and I'll break down all the accounts that you guys have unlocked so far, but the other way you can look at this is how much of my total investments this makes up, and it is a fairly small sliver. So one could look at all my investments as a whole and say, Sean, well, you got a lot in vsp.to. A lot of it is in US index funds. And maybe they would say, because you've got 20 years of a runway, why don't you go with something a little bit riskier and go with something like tech stocks or an ETF full of tech stocks like the ARK ETFs and something similar to that, which is something I could investigate. But for right now, I like the risk and return sort of plan for my LIRA at this moment. When I've filled out all of my different investment accounts, I might go back and look at this and try to change things up, looking at it at a higher level. But for now, I like to leave it where it's at. So with that, what is my new net value according to what you guys have now unlocked? So my TFSA as of the recording of this video is $115,000. My margin account's at $29,000. My RRSP is at $83,000, and my LIRA is at $52,900. So my total is $282,000. Awesome. Well, we still have 3 more things to unlock while we get to 1,000 subs. By the way, thank you all. We've passed the 700 subscriber mark, and I'd like to talk about 2 more things. And one is company stock plans, if your company offers those. We'll talk about those at 800 subscribers. And then assets like cars and houses and how those should be calculated for your net worth, and what are they? Some people consider like a house an asset. Some people say that it's more of a liability. There's a lot of, it's more of a philosophical discussion. We'll talk about that at 900 subs. And then I've got a really special one about spouses and relationships, but we'll save that for the 1,000 subscriber mark, which I'm actually really gunning for now. I never thought we would get there, but we're getting pretty close. Why not go for it? So I'm excited to make those videos for you guys. In the meantime, I'll try to make some quick ones about some of the stocks that we've talked about on this channel previously. So stay tuned. Thank you for sticking with the channel. Like I said, we'll be a little bit slow from now till probably the end of the year, but really appreciate every one of you guys. Hope you have a great week. Spread the wealth, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.